What did I teach you?
You are Duke. You're a number one.
I can't hear you.
You are the Duke of New York. You're a number one. Peace, everybody. Can everybody hear me? If so, please type it into the chat. It's all good. Honors everybody. Hope everybody's been well, inshallah. Another fine day in the apocalypse for everybody. I hope everybody's been maintaining as best as they can, watching this whole thing turn into more and more of a circus every day. Indeed. Thanks for letting me know. Thanks for everybody that's been coming through. Honest to everybody that's first timers. I appreciate you guys, the support, as well as everybody that's been purchasing the books and been looking out in terms of supporting the stuff that we've been putting out. Greatly appreciate you as well. There's a lot, again, as we always know, going on at the same time. However, one month you stop no show. And regardless to who or what is going on, we are still the ones who are in control, even though it appears to be everybody else running around, throwing rocks and hiding their hands. But for the most part, Allah is seen and heard everywhere, in regards to what these people want to act like they doing. As Bobby Hemmett used to say, they may run around this place, but they don't run it. And the more we understand that, the better it's going to be for us in terms of our mental health, as well as our individual power, as we move closer and closer to the eventual fall of these parasites that have been on our backs since before we even got here. Anybody have any questions about anything before we get started? Mexico's in full-blown collapse due to the fact that the whole government is basically being run by the cartels in China. China and elements of the Russian oligarchy, not necessarily the Russian government, but members of the Russian oligarchy has had a fifth column in Mexico for a couple of years now. And when they were going through, when they had the fake Biden actor in office, they had an agreement with them to basically move everybody up through the UN with the Chinese rat lines that they got coming up in there. So they were using them to run the fentanyl, and in return, China was sending them military-grade hardware and weapons to basically hold the Mexican government as hostage. So with the removal of the last president, and then with the establishment of this new chick, the Jewish chick, they have been trying to create different agreements with her to help benefit what they're doing. But because she's more or less an Israeli puppet, they didn't have a direct relationship with Israel like that. They have more of a relationship with China. So now that they're trying to force a lot of the old relationships with China out due to Trump's and them psychotic need to unify the hemisphere, they are now in a quandary because Israel can't really do what it wants to do in there if China is basically active with the cartel. So on one hand, you got the Mexican fake government that has been at the beck and call of the cartels now being starved out because of their relationship with China. And now the new president, who basically is an Israeli asset, wants to reestablish new ties now so that way Israel can replace China. You see what I'm saying? And do what they've been doing. So the cartels, they not having that. So with the killing of their latest El Chapo, this basically was assigned to them that they might be doing, the U.S. might be doing a full court press into the country. So they have to do what they call sorties, or limited engagement skirmishes, to let them to basically show the new interim president, again the puppet of Israel, that if you really move, they basically got to do it like, we'll destroy the entire country, you know what I'm saying, before we let you hand the shit over to Israel without giving us a better deal or cutting us in on the operation. You understand? So they can't afford that. So they got to make it look like they'll destroy the whole country in order for them to do that. But if they do destroy the whole country, they would have to then go further into other countries like Guatemala, Ecuador, Uruguay, places like that. And because the Jews have already started a campaign to take over Argentina by burning down the rainforest and stuff, they kind of locked out of that area now. So Argentina and Chile, these are now going to be beachfronts for the Nazi Zionists and the Zionist Christians. So they're going to have to kind of entrench themselves. And now, because they've already been cut off of Venezuela, you see what I'm saying? They kind of like in a quandary. Now, remember, all of these guys are actors. That's the other thing you got to remember, that all of these people are actors. Maduro's an actor. Trump's an actor. All of these guys have IMDb pages. So you also have to understand that there's a certain degree of theater going on in this as well. You know what I'm saying? So the people who's caught in the middle is the actual Mexican people themselves, and any of the so-called Americans that went down there thinking it's sweet, that might get kidnapped and held for ransom, which would then benefit Trump and them, because then they would be able to use that as a precursor to now go in with full hammers down and make it happen. But remember, these people being funded weapon-wise by China, so it's not going to be a cakewalk in the morning the way they think, you know. So yeah, so they doing what they doing with that. Yeah, so then the outbreak in India, that's also with China, because China and India have basically been threatening to go to war with each other for the past 5 to 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Based upon a lot of the border skirmishes and stuff, and a lot of the fentanyls and shit that they trying to move into India, because they not really cool with how they really working. Also, at the same time, this is also related to what's happening in Pakistan, because remember, the Pakistani people, um, you gotta remember, 44% to 50, maybe 51% of that whole population is inbred. They all practice consanguinity as a matter of course in terms of their cultural affiliation. So they're not the most smartest people out there, and that type of inbreeding is unsustainable over a long period of time. So their infrastructure is probably going to collapse within the next 3 to 5 years anyway, due to the fact that they're going to have a bunch of retard people running the country, kind of like what they're trying to do here. You know what I'm saying? By people in the country, with people like Ocasio-Cortez and these type of people who have been ritually mind controlled and raped and tortured and traumatized to such a degree that they don't even really have common sense. So you got to understand, these type of people, they don't, once they reach that level, they don't do any real thinking for themselves. Everything is a script for them, like Jasmine Crockett and all of the rest of the so-called Black Caucus. All of those people are more or less brain dead. They don't really have any real cognitive, higher functional reasoning capacity anymore, because everything that they've done has basically been compromised, or they've compromised themselves. And remember, even though there's the Republican and the Democrats, what's really running the country is this thing called the Uniparty. The Uniparty is both sides of the Congress being held under blackmail by the small hat government, which itself is in decline. They're also in decline as well. They can't sustain a long-term war with Iran any more than they want to act like they can, but they're going to bluff themselves and bluff us into thinking that they can, but they really can't. You understand? they can't really sustain any type of long-term conflict the way that they've been doing. See, it's easy to bomb women and children and stuff, and people that don't have no real way of defending themselves. You understand? And you have to also remember that the Hamas government and the Hezbollah government, these governments were set up. These are terrorist organizations that are also connected to a greater umbrella terrorist organization called the Muslim Brotherhood, which was being fostered by a lot of the Saudi Arabian, UAE countries that are the ones that are financing all of the slavery and the government decay in a lot of the African countries, because the African countries don't control anything. You know what I'm saying? The ones that are the ones that they want to use the other Africans to come in now and destroy. That is the AES states, the Sahel states that have broken away, which is Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. You understand? So France is also in collapse. Italy is also in collapse. Italy, these Spain is also in collapse. These Spaniards, these idiot dog Spaniards, they have opened up their borders, right? They hated the Moors, right? And always do these festivals every year to commemorate how they kicked the Moors out. But all they doing is letting in these wild Africans that's coming up in there in waves, in such waves that it's not sustainable for them to even maintain their own citizens, their own society. So within like 5 to 10 years, within 3 to 5 years, Spain itself is just gonna be all African. Italy itself is gonna be basically all African. They don't really have the way to sustain that. And by African, I mean uh I mean front Africans. These are not going to be people who come in to basically do what they do here, where they come in like the Somalians, they try to learn a little English, learn the political system, try to come in, get voted in, then try to look out for their peoples and stuff. No, it's going to be a full-fledged insurgency. They're going to basically try to take the country over by force. And the Italians, remember, the Italians just set up they just set up a thing where they was trying to basically go along with what the EU want, but the EU is trying to destroy Western civilization. You understand? That's why Trump and them pull themselves out of that. So all of this is basically a part of the WEF plan to collapse everything and put everybody at a detriment, so that way they can eventually replace the ailing population, because the birth rates are zero, basically. You also have to understand and remember that liberal people, like liberal chicks in the United States, like they're the ones that's not having babies. Okay, liberals, Democrats, these crazy trans people, they're anti-life. Okay, the abortionists, all of these people are anti-life because they're Fabian communists. We're gonna get into what Fabians and all these people are, but they they're anti-life, so they're not going to have babies. So the only people having babies in the United States and American, or countries that are still Western in ideology and sociology, the only people, them type of people that's having babies is the conservatives, like conservatives, Republicans. These are the only people having children. You understand? Everybody else is committed to infanticide, whether it be through abortion, whether it be through force not having babies on purpose. Like that's their whole thing. Their whole thing is the way that they see bringing down the patriarchy is to not have children. You understand? So they're doing the work of the people for them. You know what I'm saying? They're doing the work of the devil, of the what do you call it? Of the globalists for them, because they've been inundated with such socialist bullshit that they don't really understand that they're all insane. You understand? Whenever you think Democrat, whenever you think trans, you have to think that you have to understand that these people are insane. You know what I'm saying? They don't have a degree of common sense, more so the way the view of life the way that, you know what I'm saying, you and I do. So anybody that's anti-life is basically anti-human. You understand? So these people are basically done. You know what I'm saying? They're basically like just over as a whole group. It's over for them. So the only hope for Western society, or what we perceive as Western society, is people like us, people who understand what it is, which is also why they're upset, because our birth rates are now starting to go up. See what I'm saying? They didn't really plan for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're used to us being run by women. See, again, I don't want you to feel like I'm anti-women. What I'm saying, I'm just saying that the linchpin on the destruction of Western society is by convincing women not to have babies, or to have the babies that they approve them to have, which are babies with other people other than their own ethnicity, whether that be white, whether that be black, whatever. They just don't want these people in, because these psychotic small hats believe that they're not Caucasian people. You understand? They think that they're different. This is what I mean about the insanity of what you're dealing with. These people don't believe, like, we look at them as all being white, whether they Jews or Russians or Polish or whatever they are. To us, they're all white. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we don't distinguish what. And I'm not saying that we should look at people as colors. I'm just saying that when it comes to the overall general understanding of this, we do not pick and choose Caucasian people. If anything, we pick and choose, okay, this Caucasian is from America, so you have a better understanding of this type of one. So this type of one from America is the one that probably descends from the inbred white people that they brought over here on the boats, that they convinced that they was from here, that they gave a false education to. The first immigrant class, the first transatlantic slaves that they brought over here to basically fight against, get rid of us, try to replace our institutions, get into lynching us, eating us, these types of people. So we used to them white. We used to them type of crackers. You understand? We know what we're dealing with them. These other types of crackers now, whether you're talking about like Bosnian Herzegovinian, you see what I'm saying, Azerbaijanian, you don't know what them type of crackers is like. You never really dealt with them directly. You understand? You never dealt with crackers from places you ain't never heard of, like Minsk and Stad and these types of people. You don't know what them crackers is like, right? But in the root, they're all essentially German. You understand? They're all essentially Khazarian Germans, right? So you don't really know them. You might know some Russians, like if you lived in Bay Ridge, like I lived in Bay Ridge for a while, so I met some Russians and shit out there. And for the most part, a lot of the Russians are cool, right? They're not really Russian. They're not really as racist as other ones. The ones the racist Russians are usually the ones that are racist due not to so much that they think they're better. They just are disgusted as to how we have allowed ourselves to be occupied by these people. You understand? So their racism is more like, we would never let what they have done to y'all do to us. You understand what I'm saying? We would rather die. So they have so their racism is not really like based on color. It's more like disgust. Like, y'all niggas is really out here letting these niggas run y'all like this. Like, y'all the best. You know what I mean? Because remember, the whole racism thing didn't really hit Russia like that. Because remember, it was being ran by Moors up until like the late 1900s and all of that. You understand? So that's the thing with that. So you don't want all these extreme Europeans over here like that. You know what I'm saying? The ones everybody was bitching about, oh, they importing the South African refugees over here. Them South African refugees is being discriminated against, not by black people, by white people. White people don't like them. White people handling that. You understand what I'm saying? Other white people already held them down, so you ain't even got to worry about them. And it wasn't that many of them in the first place. So with the destruction of Europe, you're going to have a whole influx of all of these people. That's why homie done set up the immigration thing the way that he has, to slow all of that up. Because once all them Africans start rushing up into Spain and rushing up into Italy like they doing right now, you're going to have a lot of skirmishes, a lot of fights, a lot of killings, a lot of burning, right? France right now is on fire. The whole country is on fire, but you won't see that because they got, they got a handle on that. They don't want all of that really getting out. That the white societies is crumbling. And like I said, the Africans ain't much better because most of the African states now is being divvied up as to who is going to be for Burkina Faso and them, or who is going to be against. So for the most part, most of the African nations is against them. You understand? They not really feeling them like that. So France and these niggas is trying to make deals with Nigeria and all of that. Because remember, most of the African states are gerontocracies, meaning that they're all run by these old ass slave mentality sellout descendants of the black nobilities, right? Of the blacks who came during the era of the new imperialism and who basically were European anyway, who then married into the so-called African nations because they looked like the same color, and then slowly worked to Europeanize them by Christianizing them once the decoy white people was gone. You understand? So for the most part, the only free place that's left is here. Everybody else is basically in disarray. You know what I'm saying? And they're only as free as the small hats will allow them, because they don't want this type of global outlook that I'm talking to you about to basically be seen by melanated people. That's why they got their black slaves here in America trying to really promote the African Union shit of us still accepting the fact that we're African. So they're trying to make FBA seem like they're a terrorist cult and all this bullshit. And they're not. They're just people who have decided that they're not African of descent. So remember, the whole crux of them controlling the government is them getting you to believe that you're from somewhere else. So as misguided as some of the FBA people are, the delineation movement has actually shut down a lot of the money that these Africans have been used to getting. These Africans and Caribbeans have been used to getting off of us. You understand? So a lot of that money is being withheld by so-called melanated people, and it's changing the global perception of the fact of who the original people are. That's why your boy Putin came out the other day and told y'all, nah, this is, the country actually belonged to the original so-called Black Americans. You understand? That's a problem. That's a problem, because if he's saying this is a president of a whole country, right? This is the president of Russia. The same way the president of Colombia came out and said the same thing. You understand? That's a lot. That's a lot. That's two major people from different parts of the world basically saying the same thing of who the original people of this land is and who it really belongs to. So you have to understand that's kind of they're kind of not really feeling that. You know what I'm saying? Which is good for us, and it's good for the so-called FBAs, because like I said, they walking around here with their Black American flag and all of that. Like, everybody got to come into the knowledge how they come into it. So 10 years ago, you couldn't tell these niggas that they wasn't from Africa. So now they gotten to the point where they know that they not, and they flying flags that essentially is a Moorish flag. I already showed and proved to y'all in the last couple of videos that that's a Moorish flag. That's a Moorish sword they got on that flag, whether they want to accept it or not, whether they want to accept themselves as Moors or not. You still flying a Moorish flag. So they're getting close. So let's give them room to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And not get caught up in the rhetoric that goes along with that, or who it come from. You know what I'm saying? Because they're gonna attack it to Tariq Nasheed as an individual, and he's the guy who maybe trademarked it and what do you call it? He trademarked it and stuff, but it initially was something that was brought up by Dr. Claude Anderson. And then before him, there are people who talked about the so-called Black founding fathers. So there is a precedent for that type of understanding. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, we got to let these niggas get it to how they can. You know what I mean? Eventually, they're going to have to go back to who the original Moors and all that stuff was, which is why they've tried to come out with the whole, fake Moors versus Mers thing, and I mean, that's a stupid argument. That's a semantic argument coming from, one chick that was on TikTok who looked like she on coke. So that's not really gonna last long, and eventually they're gonna have to accept who and what they are. You know what I'm saying? It's just inevitable. So we gotta let the people get there, when as they're gonna get there, is what I'm saying. So with all that being said, now that what's his name is dead, the vibration of the planet is slowly starting to raise, and the spell that was put on the original people is now starting to lift. Okay, I'm talking about your boy Messy Jesse. This nigga, he bought the farm the other day during Black History Month, which can't be any more apropos to me as a symbol that we are definitely moving to a higher octave. Because now that this nigga's gone, Sharpton and the rest of these niggas is next. You understand what I'm saying? And their influence is gone. So they don't really have anybody else that could do what these types of sellouts was doing. You gotta understand, this nigga right here was a prolific sellout. You understand? Prolific. Like, they don't make the type of boule sellout niggas like this no more. Okay, when I posted what I posted on Facebook, you should have seen how many of the young sellout niggas that have gone through different organizations, whether they Shriners or Prince Halls or Easter Stars or whatever, that came out to the defense of this piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? But regardless, it don't change the fact that he's up out of here. So once he got up out of here, the time distortion spell that was created through this devil has already started to dissipate. You understand? We're already seeing the signs of the decline of that type of mentality. You understand? That type of mentality, that type of prolific selloutness, that really can't sustain itself anymore. The more you see these so-called Prince Halls and these Freemasons doing their little things on Facebook, their little dances and their bullshit, the more stupid these niggas look. You understand? The more we see that they're not producing anything of merit. You understand? They can't produce anything of sustainability anymore, because by the thousands, the young people are now denouncing the Divine Nine shit. They're denouncing the Black Freemason Boule shit. They're coming out of it. They're making testimonials. They got chat rooms. They got group chats. They got websites where they're talking about like how they used to smuggle people on the young Underground Railroad and all that. That's what's happening with these things. Meanwhile, the whole so-called FBA indigenous movement, the Moors, the so-called American Indians and all of that shit is on the rise. You understand? All that indigenous, we're from America stuff. That's where the future of melanated people in America is going. And they don't have a way to stop that. You understand? There's nothing that they can do to unring the bell. You understand what I'm saying? So they got sellouts now in our generation, like this nigga Umar, right? They got this nigga now trying to create a whole new movement to combat this, called the ADAF, the Descendants of African Freedmen or something like that. Now remember, the Freedmen Bank was the bank that they used to basically steal all the money from the original Moorish towns and movements and stuff that was already flourishing and stuff like that, to allow the Europeans to be able to come by way and start to extract more of the resets and more of the assets from us. You understand? The Congressional Black Caucus, like I said, which is another gerontocracy, all of them niggas is foreign. All of them niggas is either West Indian or African or Haitian or something. You understand? Most of them niggas is not even from the country no more. That's why they don't do nothing for nobody here in America. That's melanated born in America. You understand? The reparations movement itself is another scam that the DNC is trying to use to dangle the carrot in front of niggas to make them seem like they still want to do something for them, which they not. Yeah, that's another thing that's happening, brother Mordecai. Yeah, there's legislation on the bill called the Full Disclosure Act. It's already popping in England, where now they're going to force Freemasons, anybody that's a part of any so-called secret society, is going to have to reveal themselves if they want to have any type of governmental office, and if they don't, they can't be hired. It started in England, and now it's coming here, right? So remember, they just locked up, they just arrested Prince Andrew the other day, based upon his thing. Also, that's another thing. Because of the Epstein shit, all of these niggas is getting locked up. But because it's not happening here in the country, at least publicly, it's forcing them to look more and more guilty. You understand? So that is not going to be that's not going to be sustainable either for them. So they have to eventually find somebody to pin this shit on, right? But remember, the chick Bondi was said to have said, if she was to do this, if they were to actually prosecute everybody. Now I'm still looking for the actual quote where she actually allegedly said this, but this is what she has said to have said. And she's saying that if they was to lock up everybody, that the whole government would collapse. But the whole thing is, the whole government it's already collapsed. It's already collapsed. There is no trust in the government no more. And the so-called Democrats, who are only here to funnel money to illegal immigrants, right? They are now at a loss too, because they can't sustain what they want to do, right? Which is to replace the black vote, the black donor vote, with these illegals, because they keep kicking them out. So they don't have the base that they used to. You understand? So all of these niggas that are not useful no more, they're all on the chopping block. Sharpton, Farrakhan, all these dudes is over. Matter of fact, I just seen Farrakhan picture him at Savior's Day. This nigga wearing a fez now. This is the second time. This one is other Savior's Day I've seen him wearing a fez. Right? Matter of fact, his son Mustafa is going out with Janet Jackson right now. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's choosing a side. They see what's happening. They see what's coming down the road. Look at this nigga. This dude, it looked like they done cut his head off, found a little boy's body, and put his head on his body. And everybody's walking around like this nigga is like this is normal. Like you understand what I'm saying? Like people walking around him, talking to him like they don't see that he got a bobblehead on a little boy's body. It's like they transplanted this nigga or something. But this is what they do. They will walk around you and act like the men are men and the women are women when they're all inverted. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, he do look like a Pez dispenser. Where they're all inverted. Okay? Everybody that they show you as a dude is probably a girl. Everybody show you as a girl is probably a dude. You understand? People can't tell me a lot of these people that they be showing to you and be twerking and all this. Half these people be dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm an artist. Okay? I went to art school. I had to read Gray's Anatomy. You understand? I actually had physical studies. You know, when you sit down with the art tablet and there's a model in front of you and you got to draw the person's body in front of you. I used to do that. You know what I'm saying? I used to get graded on stuff like that. So y'all can't tell me when I'm looking at this dude that this chick is a dude, that this chick is a female, when it's obviously a man. The mandible, the masseter is too large for it to be a female. I don't care what kind of dress it got on, what kind of lipstick or whatever. It's a dude. And once we start accepting what we see, you understand, and not what we're meant to see, the illusion is broken and none of this stuff works. That's why all of the music is done. That's why all of the movies are done. Because none of it is real. Not that it had to be real, because it's entertainment. But what I'm saying is they use these people to influence real life opinions and real people. And so if I can get you to lust after a man when it's really a woman and vice versa, then that means that I'm controlling your mind. Once you go into it and start to see these things for what they are, not what they appear to be, you now take control of the so-called matrix. Now they can't lie to you. Now you see it exactly for what it is. You know what I'm saying? So I urge everybody, get you a copy of Gray's Anatomy. That book right there will show you. Read it. Look through it. Look at what a man's mandible is. Look at what a man's masseter is. Look at what a female's jaw is. You cannot tell me, look at this chick, Tiana Taylor, who they've raised to a new height of celebrity, right? All of a sudden, and look at this nigga's jaw and tell me that that's a female. You're not gonna tell me that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just using this one as an example. I'm not even trying to pick on this dude. I'm just saying in general, you're not going to look me in the face and tell me that that's a female. When I done had female children come out of a real female that I was there to see. You understand what I'm saying? I was there for all three of the births of my children. So I've seen it. I've seen life manifest itself. Okay? Out of a real birth canal, out of a real woman's birth canal. So you niggas can't tell me what I'm seeing is not what it is. Okay? So with that being said, the African American trademark shit, that's dead. Nobody's using it. So there's no money in African Americanism no more. You understand? There's no money in being African American anymore. We've bankrupted it. So this trademark ain't worth no money no more. You understand? This is why they're trying to bring the Africans in, and now the Africans is now trying to get in and trying to get us to accept that we still come from them, when they know that that's not the case. When the fact is, they don't even acknowledge themselves as Africans until they get here. Prior to them coming here, they are everything else. You understand? They're Senegalese, they're Cameroonian, they're this, they're that. They're not any of that until they get here. So like I said, this nigga Jesse was a prolific sellout. He was selling everyone out. This is a picture of him and Jeff Ford. Excuse me, Chief Malik. And then on the left is another transsexual. This is Shirley Chisholm. That's a dude. That's a guy. You understand? Look at the jaw. Look, one. See how it comes down right here? See how big it comes down here on the side? That's a man's jaw. Boom. Men's jaw have 4 points. Look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See that? See how it goes like that? That's a man's jaw, bro. Look at them hands. Yes. 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 This is a guy. Okay? This is what I mean about them trying to do this stuff from back in the days and using this nigga as the linchpin to sell everybody out. Okay? Yeah. But again, they done made a movie with her and had another dude play him. I forget what the actress is, the so-called actress, wink, wink, that was playing it. But this is a guy. Okay? And here he is with Chief Malik. Look at this nigga. So he went from one organization to another, to another, to another. You understand? Selling everybody out. And as soon as he leave from them, they get locked up or they go to jail or they get murked. This was his role. And this nigga was a straight. They say he was a Cherokee, but I think he was actually a Catawba. He was from the Catawba Nation. You know what I'm saying? No hate on them. But the original Rainbow Coalition was all about the original so-called Black American Indians. And then he took it and then turned it into a whole immigrant homosexual thing. And then used it as a means to then bridge the so-called civil rights movement and bring everybody into it through there. Telling you, this nigga, he was the worst. This nigga, yo. That nigga Jesse was the worst of the worst of the worst. But again, he was doing only what he sold out to do. That's what he was meant to do. Okay? And that's what he did gladly, so that way he could get the spotlight. So that way he could be the one on. because after a while, Michael, aka Michael Luther King, started to realize what they was doing. He started to wake up, but it was too late. He had already done too much to turn back. And so when he tried to switch gears, and then turn it into some people's union thing, we're going to try to get money for us as a people. No, he had to go. They got him up out of here. You understand? Which they should have, because he was no longer useful to them. And that's what they do to niggas when they done with them. You know what I'm saying? And he knew that, because he lined up enough people that he knew that was going to be the outcome if he kept going with it. But that's what he chose to do. So to hell with him. You know what I mean? And now he burning or whatever the hell he doing wherever he at. You know what I'm saying? So that's that. What else was I gonna say? So yeah, so now that spell is being broken, we are now at the most advantageous part of our lives here, because we finally get to see a change in the overall complexion of us as people. You know, the perception that we have of ourselves has now changed. And you can feel it. Like nobody is paying attention to the old guard no more. Nobody care about them. Nobody is trying to be in a situation by which they're beholden to these old ideas of who we are. You know what I'm saying? And if you are, Saturn, the way that it's hitting the planet right now, is challenging that. The youth is not feeling just sitting around singing songs and shit anymore. They not feeling that. Y'all got to provide something more. You see what I'm saying? And I'm saying this for all movements, not just the Moors. Like everybody is being held up to this. And those of us that have been on this for this long, we are now seeing, we are witnessing what we've actually wanted. You see what I'm saying? And we should be happy that this is actually happening. You know what I'm saying? That this nigga's gone. Because again, he is this was the face of the oppressor, the new oppressor, the one that looked like he was there to help you. That's why when they went to this nigga, they went to Mike Johnson, who again is a small hat stooge, right? Who's a speaker of the House. He's another small hat stooge. They went to this nigga and asked him, "Yo, we wanna bury him in like the public cemetery, you know, the thing for political, you know, people who are great for the country or whatever." I think Arlington or one of these people. They told that nigga no. They told his family hell no. You know what I'm saying? Remember, Trump paid for this nigga's whole presidential campaign, basically. And they still told this nigga no. And they right. He don't deserve that. Do him the way y'all did Mozart. People don't know Mozart, prior to him dying, who he also was a Moor. Prior to him dying, he was a part of the Harmony Lodge that was set up by another Moor named Angelo Suleiman. And that lodge had eventually got taken over. When he first came in, he thought it was all good. And then he started to basically go through a lot of their rituals and then started to incorporate some of their science into his songs and stuff. And then after a while, he got disenfranchised with them. And he started to do the opposite. He started to take a lot of the energy and stuff away. Big up to Malachi Visions. That's where I got these images from. And he went against them. And he started like low-key creating music that would break the spells of the earlier music that they convinced him to put into the music. So eventually they poisoned him, right? And then when they poisoned him, they forbid anybody that loved him to go to his grave when he died. Matter of fact, they didn't even bury him. They put him in an open grave, meaning that the grave was in the ground. They just threw his body in there, so that way the animals or whoever else could come and rip it up. See, they never talked to us about this. And but after that, they took his music. You see what I'm saying? And then basically tried to get other people to come and undo it so they could put the spells and stuff back into it. They tried to get Tovan Bey to do that, but he wasn't with that. and eventually they tried to get rid of him too. This is what I'm saying. So you can't trust them people, because once you join them people, regardless of how whatever level you in, if you join up with them and you go against them, they're gonna get you up out of here. That's the whole G with it. That's why you never supposed to join none of this shit. Remember, the prophet came, he said, I'm here to take the veils off of all the secret societies. So what you niggas putting the veils back on for? Because you want to be into them. You want to be in them. Right? So just say that. But don't act like you're receiving some sort of enlightenment that's already been proven to not exist in those areas. Because they don't exist there. No, there is no light in a dismal crypt. You understand? It's impossible. So, you know, that is what it is, essentially. You know. And yeah, see, right after this, that's when Dr. York got caught up. See what I'm saying? And again, I'm not defending Dr. York, whether he didn't do. I was never a part of it like that. I was always on the peripheral of it. And I heard the stories from back in the days before any of this stuff was out. Back when they was the Nubian Islamic Hebrews. You understand? This is how long I've been in the periphery of that. But essentially, the time has come that all of that has to go away. And people got to start to understand that all of these niggas was here to sell us out. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's what's up with him. So, everybody always is talking about, you know, the small hats, and it was them that's doing this, and it's really the Jews and the Freemasons and all that. Yeah, it is. It's always been that, right? But we also got to go to the roots of what these people are and where these people come from. And the way that they actually took power was not how everybody wants to always establish it to be. It was a lot more subtle than that. And because these things had to be civilized to a degree, they had to become more cunning. You see what I'm saying? They had to become more anchored to subterfuge as a means to survive, because we was constantly wiping them out whenever they reared their ugly faces anywhere that we had societies at. That's why they were very, very hard on them coming up. Hold on, let me pull this out. Okay. So when we are speaking of modern day Freemasonry and the Boule and the Divine Nines and all of the Mothers of Darkness and the Zodiac Society, like I was talking about the Zodiac Society, the Zodiac Club back in like 2003, 2002. And I was telling people there's a secret society in New York that's a 12-man group, and every member has to they only have 12 members at a time, and each member represents one of the signs of the zodiac, right? And this is where the elites in New York was being down with it. There was another group that was very influential like that called the Porcelain Club. And these were a lot of the groups that was dealing with the hunting parties and shit like that and all of that. So now they came out in the damn Epstein files again that this nigga was in that this nigga Jeffrey was one of the 12 in the damn Zodiac Club. And these are the niggas who was funding the Son of Sam and the Zodiac Killer and the Zodiac Killer and all that. Remember all of that? The Zodiac Killer in LA. And they had the Son of Sam, and they was always using astrology and shit. These was these niggas. These was these niggas' projects. Because after MK Ultra was shut down, they purchased the rights to use the protocols. They hired all of these niggas. Okay? Taylor Swift husband, no, Taylor Swift father is the nigga who set up the Swift payment system. You know the Swift payment system that everybody used to switch their money back and forth? That's her pops. Her mom's was Anton LaVey's daughter. Go back and look at. I'll try to get the picture of her in a minute. But what I'm saying is that when we talk about these Jews, we gotta understand that they're not really even Jews. These niggas that run Israel, they're not even Jews like that. You understand? That's not really what they are. They just use that as a cover because that's how they're taught in their little clubs, in their little pogroms or their little yeshivas or whatever. They just use that as a means to practice Talmud and Kabbalah, which is really ritualistic sex. It's a ritualistic sex death cult. You understand? Yeah, the Swift payment system. That's all her pops in them. And then her mom's, like I said, is Anton LaVey, allegedly Anton LaVey's daughter. Anton LaVey was cool with who? L. Ron Hubbard, Michael Aquino, because he had the Church of Satan. Michael Aquino had the Temple of Set. And Michael Aquino was in charge of the MK programs through the Presidio Army base, right? Where they had the underground tunnels to the daycares where they was molesting and eating and raping the children. Flying the children to ritual sites, doing rituals with them in the morning when their parents drop them off, bring them into the tunnels, take them to the underground cities, do the rituals on them, sometimes fly them away on helicopters to another state, then bring them back by 3 o'clock so their parents could pick them up. This is the type of shit they was doing. This is all in the files, y'all. These people are Sabbatian Frankists, okay? These Sabbatian Frankists eventually set up something called the Fabian Society. The Fabian Society is the society that was basically a communist, Marxist, socialist death cult society that differed in ideology from the other death cults. What they decided was that they needed long-term planning. They needed long-term exposure. So they planned years, if not decades in advance to fulfill the same ends that you see happening now. That's the difference between the Fabian Society and something like the Weatherman Underground. The Weatherman Underground, you have to understand, between the end of the Vietnam War and like 1980, this whole country was about to be invaded by a bunch of communists from all over the world because they all divvied up what they was going to do. The Chinese communists was going to take the West. The Cuban communists, they was going to take everything from Miami all the way up into the Cuban communists was going to take everything up from Miami all the way up to New York. The socialists, right, that was basically KGB types, Spetsnaz types, they were the ones that was going to take the Midwest. And they had it all worked out. And it was going to start with a bunch of political hits. So they funneled money into this thing called the Weatherman Underground, of which Obama, right, and Michelle was cool. Two of the Weatherman Underground people, they was cool with Obama to the point where allegedly they became the godmother and godfathers of their kids, right? Then what happened was when the shit went down and it went left and it didn't wind up happening because there was another underground, there was a fifth column within the United States military and industrial complex that wasn't really with it. They then started to foment a full court press against communism because they had died this shit down from the McCarthy era. McCarthy and them was right. Get a book called The Naked Capitalists. And it gets all into this crap. And it basically lets you know that everything was being funded by them. The Panthers, all these niggas was being funded by these Fabian Society communist death cult niggas. And they was going to destroy the whole country. They had a plan to at least get rid of at least 35 to 75 million people within the first 10 to 15 years of occupation. This was their goal. These was the ones that was funding all of the DNC type programs that you see popping off now. Roe versus Wade, the Kinsey program, all of the sexual deviancy shit. All of this was them. This is facts, though. This is not conspiracy. This is actual facts. You can read this. And then what happened was a lot of these niggas, but instead of going to jail, they started to switch their names up, and they started to become socialist teachers. They started teaching. They said, okay, we can't do it like this. So we need to, again, they're Fabianists. So they decided to go to long range. So what we'll do is we'll radicalize all of the children in colleges. And so they started to take over the colleges. That's when all of the college shit started. Do you know that Samuel Jackson and these radical niggas that he was with, who was basically down with this type of shit, that they kidnapped Martin Luther King's father at Howard or one of these universities? You know that actually happened? Kidnapped them with at gunpoint type shit. Yeah. They was radicalizing these niggas in these colleges. Yes, Morehouse, one of them. And this is what they was doing with them. And so they all went and became sociology teachers, political science teachers. These are the niggas who started radicalizing their kid. The Noam Chomskys and the Carl Jungs. All of them niggas was on the island. All of them niggas was down with Epstein and them. All of them. So when you hear these niggas start quoting Chomsky and Jung and Vonnegut and the rest of these niggas, all of them was being funded by these programs. Okay? This is the American history they don't want to talk about, because they let a lot of these niggas go. Some of these niggas got locked up, but these people was killing police. And these was white people. These was white radicalized people that was killing police, blowing up government buildings, kidnapping senators, gang stalking congressmen. These niggas was radical. These niggas was off the chain. But what did they do? They came down on the so-called black community while all of this is going down. You see what I'm saying? Because other than the school, the food program that the Panthers had, everything else was radical Marxist communism, y'all. Communism and socialism does not work. If you don't believe me, look at what Madani is doing to New York right now. Look at what's happening right now. So now look at this, and now remember what I said is, look at what it's going to be by the end of the summer. It's going to get worse. They're going to be an open rebellion up there sooner than later. Because this is what the Fabians do. But the Fabians came out of the Frankists. The Frankists came out of the Sabbatians. Who was the Sabbatians? The Sabbatians were a variety of Jewish followers and disciples and believers in Sabbati's Sevi. Sabbati is also another way of saying Saturn. It's also Sabbath, right? Zevi, right? An Ottoman Jewish rabbi and Kabbalist who was proclaimed to be the Jewish Messiah. When? In I-666. Okay? Yes. Because them dirty Ottomans, right? The ones, what happened? Well, we're going to get into it. Vast numbers of Jews in the Jewish diaspora accepted his claims even after he outwardly became an apostate due to his forced conversion to Islam. What happened was he got so many followers that was believing that he was the new Christ that the Sultan of the Empire, the Ottoman Empire, bagged him up and said, look, if you're the Messiah, you're going to have to do miracles. If you can't do no miracles and you can't prove that you this, we're going to cut your head off unless you convert to Islam. So you know what he did? He converted to Islam. Right away. He didn't even ask. He didn't even wait. Right away. He was like, nah, I'm keeping my head, bro. And converted, right? In the 17th century, Northern Italy experienced a surge of Sabbatian activity driven by the missionaries of Abraham Miguel Cardoso, right? This is a more. And around 1700, a radical faction within the Donme, right? That's what they call the religion, the Donme movement, led by Bulgarian Russo, emerged, which sought to abolish many of the biblical prohibitions. See, these was the sexual deviant niggas that was really worshiping the Antichrist and all the other shit they was doing, right? He emerged. The Sabbatian groups from Poland migrated to the land of Israel, right? Now, the land of Israel they talk about is over here. okay? But they're going to make you think that it's Israel over there. But remember, there was no Israel over there. The Israel over there didn't exist. It was wiped out, remember? They wiped it out back in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, okay? It did not exist. And the one that exists today is not connected to the original one. Remember that. The Sabbatean movement continued to disseminate through the Central Europe and Northern Italy during the 18th century. Propelled by prophets and believers, concurrently anti-Sabbatean literature emerged, leading to a notable dispute between Rabbi Yaakov Emden, Yavezet, and Jonathan Eberschutz, right? Additionally, a successor to the movement known as Frankism, okay? Led by Yakub Frank. It's always a Yakub. It's always a Yakub grafted. Remember that. Began in Eastern Europe during this century. Part of the Sabbatians lived on well into the 21st century. See? Turkey as descendants of the Donme. The Donme, right? The Donme is is the eventually became what we today know as the B'nai B'rith, right? That's the Jewish Freemason society that sits over all of the other so-called Freemasons under them, right? The Frankists were an 18th century Jewish sect centered in Polonia, which is Poland, following the messianic leader Yakub Frank, who declared himself the Messiah, see? And encouraged the breaking of the Talmudic law of anti-Manism. Now, what does that mean? Originating from the Sabbatianism, the movement preached that salvation required descending into the abyss of sin, resulting in scandalous rituals they later embraced in the mass conversion to Catholicism. So what they decided to do was this. Because Levi was proven to be a charlatan and a liar, right? Because he didn't believe in any of the Jewish shit he was telling these people. And because he was that quick to convert, what he told people was that he did that to show them that the ultimate way of power would be to convert to whatever the societal norm is in whatever civilization they want to conquer. And then go into that as zealots, right? To such a degree that they would be able to take over and then use whatever the religion is to be the shield for what they're doing, and then at the end still promote what it is they're trying to be, which is Sabbatian Frankists. You understand? So their goal was to basically adopt whatever was popping. If it's Catholicism, we're going to be Catholics. If it's Muslims, we're going to be Muslims. If it's Buddhists, we're going to be Buddhists. If it's Zoroastrians, we're going to be Zoroastrians. But in the end, we're all Sabbatians. Then Frank took it further. Because remember, why the other Jews hated this nigga, the real Hebrews, i.e. the Moors, hated this dude, was because Sabbat, he was basically riling up all the Khazarian type converts and getting them to indulge in, basically to break everything in the Torah. That in order to be salvation, to bring about the new Messiah, we have to descend the entire world into sin and depravity, to make it so disgusting and horrible that once the true Messiah rises, he actually is fulfilling the job that we gave him, which then makes us the God of that Messiah. You understand? You understand the logic, the flawed logic of this cult. So when you ask, well, why are the Israelis, why are these niggas doing all this horrible stuff? This is why. Because they think that they can bring the second coming quicker if they descend the world into total madness and depravity. This is their religion. This is what the Christian Zionists believe. Believe it or not, most Satanists, like hardcore Satanists, they're against child murder. They're against sacrificing animals. They're against any of that because their whole thing, the true hardcore Satanists believe that the body is the sacredest of all, and that the ego, the true ego that dwells within the body, is God. So to violate that in any way would go against the very premise of Satanism, which was to glorify and celebrate the self, worship of the self. So to do anything to dishonor or dismember the self is seen as anti-satanic. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when we really get into it, the people who are actually really promoting this thing that we see as Satanism, that we think is Satanism, is actually the opposite. It's actually the Abrahamic Christians. It's actually the pagan practicing Muslims. It's actually them. Tell me I'm lying. Aren't the UAE Arabs over there enslaving people in Libya right now and selling them, calling them abids and all of that? Ain't they the ones doing that? Ain't they the ones oppressing their women in Afghanistan right now, where women can't even walk, they can't even talk, they can't even go outside without a big comforter on, they can't drive cars, they can't read? Where's the outrage in that? Where's the women going over and protesting that? I bet you they not. Those are Muslims doing that. They believe that they can have sex with boys, with little boys. They believe that. The Pashtuns over there in Afghanistan, they have what they call the bachi boy. They got the little boys. They say men are for pleasure. Women are only for creation, for procreation. They stone women if they find them with a book. They can't even read the so-called Quran that they're under. They gotta get it through their mans. You understand? But they'll be in an Arab. Same thing with the Arabs in the UAE. They'll have parties and there'll be a bunch of niggas up in there popping ass, twerking and shit. Men. Why you think the men wear the long caftans like that? That's like dresses with no cummerbund or nothing to show their waist or anything, the way that the Moors would wear and all that. How come they don't do that? The Moors used to wear pantaloons under that stuff. You know that, right? No, them niggas be straight naked under that. A lot of them freak niggas. But they be the first ones to stone a homosexual, only if they catch them. See what I'm saying? But they'll be main ones to rape and have babies with little girls. In Iran right now, they was trying to ban it. And the people came out. 80-year-old men is marrying 14, 13, 12-year-old girls. Where in the Quran? Well, it do say that in the Quran. That's what Jameer Muhammad was doing, right? So yes, this is who you're dealing with. The Frankists. But then where did the Frankists and these niggas come from? Where did the Sabbatians, where did they come from? I'm gonna tell you. Give me a second. All of these dudes, all of these religions, they all down with it. They all were all infiltrated by Frankists. All of them. All of them at one point or the other. Right? So Frank, like I said, was another word to mean like free, right? Like the Frankish Empire, right? Like them. This is where you get the French from, right? That's another way of saying Frankist. Where did they come from? Ask yourself this. How come all of the early Christian texts, right, and stuff like that they get the Bible and all of this from, how come all of that stuff was translated from Greek first? Anybody ever asked you that? Anybody ever did the knowledge to that? How come it had to get translated from Greek and then into Latin and then into whatever? Do we know? Does anybody know? Has anybody done the knowledge to that? So we're gonna get into it. All of this stuff, when we say satanic, right? We're not talking about the devil with the horns and all of that. We're talking about things that are anti like life. But like I said, real hardcore Satanists, the ones that's really in it for the joint, they really are against a lot of the stuff. So a lot of stuff got put on them when Anton LaVey took the science and then merged it with the Freemason shit and the Jesuits and all of that. Yes, when we get into the Septuagint and all of that, right? How come it was all in Greek? Well, when we talk about Greek or Old Greek, right, we're talking about those Peloponnesian clans that existed, right, in what they call it Aegean in them places. So after the fall of Jerusalem and all of them got kicked out and got taken into captivity, a lot of them had to bounce to escape the persecutions. So a lot of them went up into the Peloponnesian cultures, what we today call Greek. These is melanated people, right? There was an ancient people called the Pelasgians, right? The Pelasgians were basically like the precursor to everybody that was there. An offshoot of the Pelasgians was another group called the Etruscans, right? Who went up into Italy. The Pelasgians and all of that, those cultures were somewhat the indigenous ones that was there. And then after influx of what they call Indo-Europeans, which are basically a bunch of melanated, varying complexion people who were coming into these areas that had different customary values, started to merge with them and started to alter how they got down. So the Hellenists, right? Hellenists are primarily defined as Greek-speaking individuals in the ancient Mediterranean who adopted Greek language, culture, customs, particularly Jewish people living outside of Palestine, the diaspora, see, during the Greco-Roman period. In the New Testament, they were distinct from the Aramaic Hebrew Jews with their inclusion in the early church, marking the shift towards Gentile evangelism. So the Hellenists were the so-called melanated descendants from those who had been kicked out of Judea, who went amongst the Peloponnesian so-called Greek peoples and put down being so-called Jewish, but they were seen as Hellenistic, right? Because at the same time, the ones that was already there, the so-called Greeks, they didn't allow them to keep the Sabbath and all of that because all of them niggas was pagan. So they had to hide. See what I'm saying? They had to hide what they was really doing, right? Until a certain point in time when they can marry in and get enough people down with them to do that. But the true Aramaic Hebrews, the Gnostics, right? They was not with none of that. They wasn't with the subterfuge of all of that. You understand? Boom. Biblical role mentioned in Acts 6:1. They were Greek-speaking Jewish Christians, some of whom overlooked in daily food distributions, leading to the appointment of the first deacons. See? They used the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament. See? They was Hebrews, but they was living as Greeks. But they was trying to get into Greek society so they could have more control to be able to worship what they wanted to worship and not have to be pagan. But they would act like they was pagans. You understand? Which then made them a contradiction to the Aramaic Hebrew people. Remember, they say Yeshua spoke, what they say Yeshua spoke, Greek or Aramaic? Anybody? Which one did he speak? Aramaic. So how come all of the translations came out of the Greeks? You see what I'm saying? You see how they do? Exactly. So if he was speaking Aramaic and the Gnostics and the Essenes in them, the Nazarenes in them was speaking Aramaic, right? And remember, they said that they couldn't tell the Aramaics the Nazarenes, the Egyptians, the Hebrews, the Greek, all them niggas look the same. So what distinguished them is their customary value. The modern practitioners of the Hellenists often honor the Olympian deities, including Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Hermes, and Hestia, through prayer and festivals. So these were pagan, right? These niggas wasn't even real Hebrews like that. They was acting like they was keeping the commandments and all of that. They created their own version called the Septuagint and all of that. But the real ones was the Aramaic-speaking ones, because they was the ones that wasn't trying to convert and go under the radar like they was something else. So I'm showing you these are the roots. That's why the word Hebrew meant what? To cross over. To cross. To go from one thing to the other thing. The majority of rabbis in Polonia, Moravia, and Bohemia, right? These were all Moorish territories, as well as the leaders in the three communities supported the Ebushutes, and the accusation was utterly incredible. In July 725, the Ashkenazim Beth Din of Amsterdam had issued a ban of excommunication of the entire Sabbatian sect. They were all discommunicated. They were all excommunicated from being so-called Jews from that point on. So we hear what I'm telling you. From July 725, the last real rabbi in Amsterdam, where all these niggas was centered at, excommunicated all Sabbatians. So at that point, they ceased to be. So why are they still here? However, Rabbi Katzenbrogen stated that on one of the texts found in Amsterdam, Din Vavau Hayom El Hachayim, right? And I came this day into the fountain and was authored by Jonathan Ebushutes, right? And declared that all copies of the work that were in circulation should be immediately burned. They excommunicated all of these niggas for being fake. Because they wasn't the original Hebrews and none of that anyway. Remember Paul, who had control over the 7 churches? He was a Jew, right? He was a Jew too. And he was what? A Roman. Which means what? He was a Hellenist. You understand? And wasn't he persecuting the Christians and the rest of them? Wasn't he doing that? And then one day he had a revelation and then said, boom, we're going to create the Pauline doctrine. And then he's the one who deified and created the whole science with Yeshua becoming from the dead and salvation and render unto Caesar what is Caesar. This nigga Paul created all of that. Yeshua didn't create none of that. That had nothing to do with him. Matter of fact, James, who allegedly was Yeshua's brother, came out and denounced all of that shit. That's why Yeshua said all of the churches, the 7 churches that this nigga Paul talked about, all is crumbled. They all destroyed. Because Paul was never any of that. He was a liar. He was a Hellenist. He was a Sabbatian before the Sabbatians even existed. He was a Frankist before he even existed. He was a Freemason before they even really existed. He was playing a role to bring people back into it. Yes, he was the Pharisees. Yes, the Sadducees. Yes. Yes. The liars. Yes, a lawyer. See, I was just about to say a liar. Yes, a lawyer. Yes. Some scholars see the seeds of the Hasidic movement within the Sabbatian movement. Yes. Don't the Hasids practice the mitzvah pay? The mitzvah payer? Where they suck the foreskin off the baby? Haven't you read the reports about all of the sick shit that them niggas be doing? I grew up around them people, man. You can't tell me nothing about them. I've seen it. I've seen how these people get down. Yes, they are the versions of that. And didn't they create their Messiah? Yes, they had their own Messiah named Menachem Shmirshyn. Yes, yes, yes. The Pharisees is the ops. The Sadducees was the ops. Yes, all of them. All of them playing the same role. Yes, that's who all these people are. These are the Kabbalists. These are the ones that create the rituals. These are the ones that created the whole science to be able to get the babies and all that type of shit. These people. Yes, them, because it's their religion. This is how they live. This is how they see themselves. This is their religion. You understand? This is how they get down. They are all about the subterfuge. Remember, the Sabbatian way is through deep depravity and sin. The most heinous things that you could, all of this stuff, the most heinous, disgusting things you could ever imagine. That is their religion. Their religion says they're supposed to do those things because the more they do it, the more, and they do it to children, the more closer that they get to bringing the mitzvah, to bring the ultimate mitzvah, which is the king coming down. So guess what Rothschild was? A Sabbatian. A Sabbatian Frankist. Yes. Guess who helped Adam Weishaupt set up the so-called Illuminati? Jacob Frank. Look it up. Yes, the Sabbatian. Yes, the Frankists. That's where the Frankists come from. Yes, your boy, this nigga, he's the one who set it off. Where is the joint I just had with them in it? Just had all of these Freemasons in this shit I was trying to show you. Yes, Rothschild, all of them. All of them. All of them. That's why they was against King James. That's why they was able to get into the decoy royalty and all of that, because that's how they were able to maintain. And those dirty ones, those Moors that decided that they was going to use them as the decoys to do it, they were the ones who put them in play. Yes. Yes, that's why they used them as money changers and money lenders. Yes, because they were forbidden to have land, because everybody knew how grimy these niggas was and knew that everything that they did was about sacrificing children, because that was part of the religion. That's why they created the aspect of the religion that said that they get to enslave everybody, that everybody get to be their slaves so they can live as the Effendi. Who is the Effendi? The Moors. The ones that put them in play so that way they would be able to control and have sway, right? Because they were reigning in power. They had been waning in power, so they needed to find a way that they were going to create a way for them to control. So the only way in was the way out, was for them to be able to dictate how it went. And so the Moors, who had already been practicing the decoy stuff, those dirty ones who had been forbidden to come back here, right? They basically took a group of them and started to train them over the course of many, many years to teach them, again, how to rule and how to take over through subterfuge, right? Which then brought them in direct conflict with the other Moors who wasn't with it. And then this caused the global conflict in which brother was fighting brother, cousin was fighting cousin. Because we wasn't with that. We wasn't with it. Because we knew what these things was created from time immemorial, from when we was fighting them as wood wolves. But they didn't have the numbers to beat all of us. So they had to start to break us down. So they started to lease and take little pieces and parcels of land that they could grow these things in, that they could start to work with them, start to teach them shit. Right? Start to work the numbers. And then a lot of these Moors would then go to war with these things, right? But then these things started using, right, other versions of them, the so-called whites that were now being freed up, right, that they were buying from these Moors, freeing them up, and then they were using them as tools of war against the rest of us. You understand? Get the book, The Dogs of War. It talks about it in this. Get the book, White. They were white and they were slaves. Who was the ones who was running the so-called slave trade like that? Them. Because they were money chain. They was using them as that to enslave their own people. Then they started creating side deals to start to take over Moors who had got caught up as prisoners of war, and then started selling them. They wasn't supposed to do that. See what I'm saying? But they started using them. Right? They started using them in the war against everybody. And then by the time niggas start finding out what's really going on, some of these Moors is actually in debt to them now. So now, in order for them to hold on to their lands, they now got to do the bidding of the slaves. Just like what's happening right now. Do you see? We haven't left that time. And then what happened? Certain Moors and elements of the empire just started cutting themselves off from everybody. Nah, we don't even have Moors here. Matter of fact, we're not even gonna call ourselves Moors no more. You know what I'm saying? Because they couldn't tell who was who. So then that's like me and you. Me and you got beef, and then I have an army, and then I clothe my army in blue. You have an army. You clothe your army in gray. And then we both put up the money for our armies to go in and fight in this area we'll call Gettysburg. And then whoever win, now I bow out gracefully, and now your army gets to take over in your name, pay you rent, and now they get to live on the land and enslave the people that was already there. But we thinking these people is being enslaved by these white people. No, it's all through decoy. It's all subterfuge. What is the motto of the Israelis? Rule by deception, right? Of the Mossad. It's rule by deception, right? Ain't that their motto? Where the fuck did all of these ones that I pulled off go? It's crazy. Right? And so they start to realize, oh, we could get away with this. We could keep this going. And so what do they start to do? They start to invest in these things. And then they start to get other decoys, other whites, to start to raise them up and use them as decoys against these other Moors that's now in fracture and in free fall against one another. Right? That's what they do. Or that's what they've been doing. And then we thinking, oh, it's these white people that's doing this. It's these white people as oppressors. No, they couldn't do it without help, bro. They didn't know where to go. They didn't have no control. They didn't have no power. They didn't have no ships. They didn't have none of this. Where was they getting all of this from? Who was paying for that? Who was flipping the bill for all of this? We ever ask ourselves this? No, we don't. We just go on what these people say. And the way that they do it is through the children. They always using the children because the children are the connection to the future. So if they can continuously mollywop the children, sacrifice the children, make you distrust the children, now you sign them over to them. And now they can use them to make the matzah bread and do all of the other stuff that they always telling us that they doing. This is not all so-called Jewish people like that. This ain't all of them. This is just the ones that's doing it. You understand? All to hide this, all to hide all of this. I just watched, what you call it, this nigga Ziggy Marley's son that he had with the Swedish chick. Because they in the house of Breakspear. He went to Israel to have his bar mitzvah. You hear what I'm telling you? You can look this up just the other day. You hear what I'm telling you? Ziggy Marley, Bob's son, his grandson just got his bar mitzvah in Israel. Because all of that stuff was set up by them, yo. That roster shit, all of that was to make idols, to make niggas worship other idols as gods. Bro, this is what they do. This is their religion. You understand? I'm not talking about no fantasy, no none of this. This is real life. This is where we just got where all of this come from. Why you think in Greece pedophilia is basically legal? Why you think all them niggas moved to Greece? Except Tom Hanks, I heard they about to kick him out. They say he can come back and chill, but he can't stay no more. Why you think all of them niggas was going to Mykonos and Greece and all this other type of shit? Because that's where they were Hellenists. When they talk about Alexander the Great, they say that he was a Hellenist, right? When you see Hellenistic pictures of Moses, you see that picture of Moses with horns on his head, right? But they don't tell us what none of this shit mean. They don't tell us that none of this stuff is what it really is. They got us trying to figure it out and going by what their version of it is. But remember, all of these books was written by them. McGraw-Hill and them, right? Who funded the what you call a Confederacy? Do you understand that the Cherokees and these niggas was locking people up? You understand that they was enslaving people? Not the real ones, not the Tsalagees, but it says, I showed it, that the Cherokees, the white ones that came after Wati and them, that they came in there and they burned down the mound builders. They kicked the mound builders out, shut down the mounds, right? Didn't we read that? Burned down the mounds, all of that, kicked the original ones out. Who were the Moors, the Washita Moors and all of them, kicked all of them out, right? Routed them, then built towns and villages on top of the cities and the mounds that they had ran them out from. Then took over the whole thing, and they've been whiting everything to this day. But then they're going to hate the Moors. They're going to say, oh, the Moors is the ones that put us in slavery. The Moors was the ones that did this. Have you read the Cherokees? Do you understand who's running the Cherokee nations right now? Those is all white Jewish people. And y'all worried about us? No, you right with them. You got to go to them for recognition. Ain't that crazy? They got to go to them for recognition. The Moors don't. We don't got to do that. We get to declare our nationality anywhere. NAACP, right? Exactly. See, Masonry is the search after light, the search after light. That search leads us directly back, as you see, to the Kabbalah, right? Gentiles, the goys, are not humans, they are beasts. Rabbi Isaac Wise, the Israelite of America, Masonry is a Jewish institution whose history, degrees, charges, passwords, and explanations are Jewish from beginning to end. Didn't I tell y'all about the Congress of Wilhelmsbad? Where they fought for the right to have their own way to do it, to get away from the old way of doing it. These were Fabian Society Frankists. These were Sabbatians. And now they got black people down with it. That's what all these black Freemasons are. Masonry has nothing to do with this. Masonry come again from the ancient aspect of those who are born from the mother to the son, right? The sons of the mother, the ancient order of mothers and sons. That's the original humanity. That's us. We've naturally born on that. How we showed you from the soon as the baby come out, the melanated baby come out, it raises its head up towards the sun, using its spinal vertebrae power through the melanin. That has nothing to do with Freemasonry. The shit that these niggas is doing, these Shriners and these Jesters and these Prince Halls and these Scottish and the rest of these niggas, right? They are practicing Kabbalah. They are practicing Hellenism. They are practicing Sabbatian Jewry. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Okay? The Zodiac Club, all of this type of shit, all of this comes from that. Look at them. Look at what they're doing to the child. When shit get too hectic, first thing they do is start looking for a baby. It's the first thing niggas start doing. And again, we're not talking about all Hebrew. We're not talking about Hebrews. We're not talking about the so-called Ashkenazim Jews, because there's a lot of them that's not with this shit. They not with it. I grew up in Crown Heights. I used to see the low-key wars that was going on between the Setmars and the Lubavitch communities. Them niggas was banging on each other. The Setmars was not with that Israel. They was not with none of that. I seen it, bro. They had their own police forces. They used to have shootouts with each other. They used to kidnap ones from one part of the Setmars would kidnap, or the Lubavitch would kidnap a Setmar, beat him up, cut off his little curls and shit, piss on his yarmulke and shit, throw him out the car. This is the type of shit these niggas was on, son. In Brooklyn. This is how they was getting down. But when shit got too thick, they would get into it. Crowley, Aleister Crowley and them niggas. All them niggas was practicing this stuff. The Goetia demons, all of that stuff is coming from these devils, from these people, man. It's not a joke. The decoy shit is real. That's how these niggas have been able to run everything. Because they've been using decoys, bro. They've been using this same old Moorish practice. It started with the Moors who had to hide their nobility because niggas was trying to kidnap them and ransom them for money and stuff all the time. So they would have fake ones. Get the movie Kingdom of Heaven. And there's a scene when Balian, after his ship gets wrecked and he winds up coming on shore. He comes on shore and there's a dude that he sees on a horse. And the dude is like, yo, and he's there with his slave. And this dude is like, well, look, this is my land. You got this horse that made it through the storm, but the horse is on my land, so you got to give it to me. If you don't, I'm going to have to kill you. You're going to have to fight for it. He's like, nah, I don't want to do that. He said, well, then give up the horse. Then he's like, all right, well, whatever. So then he's like, well, who's that? He said, that's my slave. He said, he ain't got nothing to do with this. It's between me and you. So they start banging. Balian kills him, right? So now Balian get the right to have the horse. They ride into town together. Then a year later, he winds up coming across the dude. He don't kill the slave. Later, when he finds out that that dude that he killed wasn't his slave, The guy who was acting as the slave was the king. The guy who he had killed, who was acting like the king, was really the slave. I'm telling you, that's an old Moorish practice. Fake right, go left. That's how they was able to survive after a point, because we had kill orders on us. If they saw you speaking Latin, if they saw you in your Moorish habit, they would kill you, because the Sabbatians would put bounties on our heads. You understand? But it's all coming out. And all of these black Sabbatians and Frankists and shit, all them niggas is being exposed. They dying off. Look, even Farrakhan wearing fez is open now. You understand? This the governor of New York, bro. They are everywhere. They're everywhere. Like in Blade, where he was like, look, they're everywhere. You don't understand. They everywhere, son. They everywhere. That's the governor of New York. That's Kathy Hochul. That's the New York governor. Yes. Yes. Caught her on a hot mic. Caught her on a hot TV. Yes. Yes. They're all possessed by demons, because they all got to go through these rituals that's ran by these niggas right here. Jesuits are Jews. They're all Jews. They're all Kabbalists. They're all hedonistic Satanists. They're all nihilistic, despotian tyrants. They put as many demons as these niggas as possible. They'll do moonchild rituals where they'll beat somebody half to death, almost kill them. Sometimes they'll actually kill you. They'll actually kill you, right? Then, while you're dead, they start enchanting and putting type of spells and all types of shit on you. Then they bring you back to life. They use the defibrillators and shit, and then bring you back to life. They'll dislocate your arms. They'll break your legs. They'll do all types of shit to you, and almost put you in a almost dead state. Crowley, they said that Crowley used to go with orgies for 48 hours straight, to the point that he would literally pass out. They would have to do it until they passed out. Then the mothers of darkness witches would come in, and then they would start to do the incantations over the bodies while they was out. And then through the Osirian ritual would bring them slowly back to consciousness. Because now within the consciousness is the entity that they put into you. That's called a moonchild ritual. Or they would get a child, put them in a room that's shaped like a pyramid with an opening at the top. And then have like catheter, have like copper catheters or cathodes that would go up into the joint. Then they would have the child on when it first gets its period. And then they would have 3 people in there that had this thing done to them. And then they would go and then sexually assault the child over and over while the child is having a period. So the period is coming down. They're trying to put something in. It's coming down in back and forth to the point that the child passes out. Then they start to do the incantation rituals over the child. This is in the Talmud. This is in the book. This is their religion. You understand what I'm telling you? This is their religion, bro. This is how they get down. But this is not they do not consider this as evil. They think that they have convinced themselves because they're Sabbatians. And remember, I told you that they're not Jews. We just told you that the whole Jew thing got shut down for them in 1725 by the last real rabbi out there. The last real Khazarian rabbi excommunicated all of them. So from that point on, this became their version of it. You understand? Netanyahu, none of these niggas is that. They just use that as the shield because that was what Sabbatian That's what Sabbatianism is. It's a scam. It's a front for them. That's why your boy came out. That's why your boy Putin came out and said, look, he excommunicated, he kicked out all of the Rothschilds. The Red Shields, he kicked them all out. He shut down the Church of Satan. He banned it. He banned all the LGBTQ shit in there. This is all of them that's in the files. This is just some of them. This ain't even all of them. Get this book. The PDF is free online right now. What's crazy is when you read it, there's basically a section that says that the main way to break down any system is to go in and just be disagreeable. You ever had a coworker at your job who just, regardless to what you did, they always had a problem with you? They was always trying to find a pro, or you had a job, or you was on a team, or you knew somebody that was just constantly being negative, constantly just bringing down the morale of everybody. That's a tactic of them. That's a CIA tactic. And all CIA tactics come from this system. Yes, they say how there's a section in it, how to bring down an entire system based on being contrary. Say half the system that they bring down is just somebody in there just being cross, who know the right way to do it, but they just are constantly just being negative. And eventually that negativity seeps in and breaks down everybody that's involved. And pretty soon nobody wants to be down with it. That's why all of your present entertainment, that's how all your entertainment is being destroyed. It's them. I'm giving you the blueprint of what they're doing. This is why they make the Klingons gay. This is why they make every superhero character a different race. Or they do it because they're trying to get everybody who grew up liking this stuff to hate it, to demoralize you. That's why they want to go in and find anything that you used to like and just pervert it and turn it into something. And you're like, well, why are they doing this? They know everybody hates it. Yes, that's why they're doing it. To make you hate it, so that way you don't even have that to escape to. So that way they can say that they destroyed everything that you like and you can't do nothing about it. That's why. This is a form of warfare, y'all. This is how they do it. Anything that Jesse Jackson was a part of, we know we shouldn't be a part of, off rip, after a certain time. The reason why Nigeria is messed up the way that it is because of this nigga, who is also a Sabbatian Jew. This nigga right here. He came in, this guy, he came in, he was cool, he was nice, they welcomed him in, and then eventually he started a junta. He created a junta in Nigeria. This before it was even Nigeria. He created a junta in Nigeria, and then from there he started to basically cause terror and havoc. Was burning people up, raping people, doing all types of shit. Then his sons took over. Then they started doing it. And then eventually split the whole country up into the Islamic situation that it's in now. Where they're allegedly burning Christians and killing them and doing all of this. This is why they're doing it. They do it every day. Look, they done did it to Kai. This ain't the same nigga. And again, this dude that they brought in, he was cool, but he was a Sabbatian. He was a Frankist. He did the same thing. Came in, acted cool, acted like he was Muslim, acted like he was cool with everybody, cool with the Nigerian way of life and all of that, and then slowly went in and started taking everything over. And then once he got enough power, he converted enough people to his version of extreme Islam, and they went in and wreaked havoc, destroyed half the country. That's why Nigeria is where it is to this day. Look, this is a different nigga. This is a whole different nigga. They've been doing this to y'all. They've been doing it. They've been doing it, y'all. This is how they do. This is how they do it. As what's his name used to say, Montel Jordan. This is how we do it. This is it. Look, they've been running this play for years. Look, this is Zora Neale Hurston, and then this is your boy. This is Zora Neale Hurston, and this is your boy King Latifah. Come on, man. Come on, y'all. Come on, man. Wake up. This is how they do it. They set up juntas. They set up little juntas. They create the decoys. They get the informants in, and they start switching everything up on you. The next thing you know, your country ain't your country no more. They done switched it up, and then they got these niggas in running it, and then they bring a whole new cast in, and it's always the same people. Look, tell me I'm lying. I'm making this up. I'm creating this. I'm creating this, right? I'm just making this all up by myself. That's what's going on. This picture's from the 50s. You understand what I'm saying? This from the 50s. This the fake Lincoln right here. This the decoy fake Lincoln. This nigga here now. Cillian Murphy, the nigga that got to play Oppenheimer. The nigga who played the Scarecrow. Yeah, they've been doing this. They don't know any other way. They took the Moorish decoy thing to the next level. You understand? to the next level. And it don't matter the sex. Remember, everybody's inverted. The boys are the girls are the boys. You understand? This is not... Look your nigga Frodo. Look at your man Frodo. Look at this little boy. This is supposed to be a girl. Look the jaw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see that? Whenever the jaw do that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a dude. See this? This is a girl. See how it goes? See how small it is? Girls have egg heads. Guys have block heads. It's basic anatomy. Look. This is how she look now. Right? But look. This is how she used to look. Wait. Look, man, it's sorcery. I told y'all. They're golems. You know what a golem is? What a homunculus is. Those were ancient names for clones. This is old Yaqub shit that they learned from those Moors who was fighting against them for so long that eventually they got overrun. Once the technology was taken over by the dirty ones, then the dirty ones started working on these niggas and working on them. Tamahu, yes. Magunzas, yes. Woodwos, yes. Yetis, homunculus, golems, gola, demons. It's all the same shit, bro. It's all the same thing. What does the Bible say? We're at war with principalities and powers and unseen people in high places. Right? Yes. Yes. Yes, all these decoys, bro. Nothing is new. Get the book. What's the name of this book? Hold up. It's called. I gotta pull it up. Give me a second. Yes, here it is. Get these books, bro. The children are always the goal, because the war against God is a war against children, because the true and living understands and manifests through the children, because the children are the future. You understand? The children represent a new way of being, a new hope. You understand? So the more children that they can destroy, the more children that they can eat, the more children that they can turn away, the more they are waging war, and the closer they get to their goal of bringing the true and living into flesh, so that way they can kill him according to their religion, and then bring it down, and then put their false god on their throne, on its throne, and then rule from space or whatever with it. This is their goal. You understand? This is not a joke. This is not a drill. This is how these niggas get down. You heard? Just the other day, they just found a melanated boy hung from a tree, allegedly in Cobb County, Georgia. Democrat state. You understand? Democrat state. So they trying to turn it up. Why? Because we're not the ones that they are targeting now. They got to get rid of all of these immigrants. They got to get rid of all of them type niggas, so they can't afford it to not have us involved. So they trying to rally us up behind this. But they got they devils in the fraternal order of police, or whatever Masons or Freemasons that they got working to say that it's not foul play. So what this says is, we have to find or start to put money into our own investigation agencies with uh uh law enforcement powers to go in there and do the real work to find out who's responsible for these things and bring them to task. The same way that the Jews got their own police, the same way that the Muslims got their own police, the same way the Sikhs got their own police, the same way the got their own police. But we don't got no money for that though, right? Exactly. Get these books, The Roman Conspiracy to Invent Jesus. It's real. Jesus ain't got nothing to do with Yeshua, bro. This is all Sabbatian, Frankist, Fabian society, nihilist, satanic, commie, socialist bullshit. That's what all of this is. Get this book too, Strung Up, How White America Learned to Lynch Black Children. The movie The Green Mile was about this little boy, was about a little boy, but they couldn't film them actually hanging a little boy. So they made a big black man with the mind of a child. You understand how they do it? And who run Hollywood? Who run the banks? Who run the what you call it? The entertainment industry? Who run all the agencies? Exactly. It's all a scam to make us believe, oh, it's the Jews, oh, it's the this one, oh, it's the Freemason. No, it's all of them. They're all working together. We are the ones that are not. And that's why we getting picked off. That's why we not being taken seriously. because everybody is blaming a group that a lot of our peoples are down with. They down with it. You hear me? They down with it. These niggas will do anything for money. Why you think every time you see a so-called black celebrity get on, the longer they in there, the lighter skin they get? Y'all don't notice that? As soon as these chicks get on, that they start getting their surgeries, they start getting their noses, they start getting their skin, and the next thing you know, they like, don't believe me? Look at Beyonce. Look at Megan Good. Look at every chick that's on TV. And again, most of them are men. You hear what I'm telling you? Most of them are men. This nigga died the other day, which is great too, because he's the one that got everybody thinking that aliens made the pyramids. Because he wrote a book, Chariots of the Gods. Now everybody, aliens is the ones that built the pyramids, and then that spawned a whole situation, right? Meanwhile, guess what? Freemason, Sabbatian Frankists, this nigga, another immigrant, right? But look at who's on the wall. Look at who's on the wall, but he telling you that the aliens did it. Why the aliens ain't draw themselves as aliens on it then? Why? Because these were the pogroms. These were the slaves that they used to initiate all of this decoy shit on us. These ones right here. But it's about the Cabbage Patch Kids and these people. These niggas, because they not from nowhere. So that whole section that was excommunicated, that became the section of the Sabbatian cults that they started to use to infest everybody and then do the worst thing that they could do to whatever society that they was in. These are the niggas who say that they've been a part of a police force, Freemasonic police force, that was running for the past 3,000 years. They all just went to jail. Who are they down with? Bill Clinton, Kamala Harris, and the LA establishment. They all are down with it together. It don't matter what color they are. That's where we get it twisted. Once you understand how the decoy royalty thing go, you'll never be duped again. They are the ones that came over here on ships. They are the slaves. They are the ones who were excommunicated from the religion that they say that they needed a whole state to establish for themselves. These niggas, they not from nowhere. They had no culture. They had no history. They were brought over here on boats to replace you, to invade us. And now they're doing the same thing again with the new ones. And now they're trying to get so-called melanated people like me and you that's finally getting our shit together to understand that we really from here to go out here and crash out and start banging on ICE. ICE, again, is a detachment of the IDF, but so is most of the police forces because they were sending all of the police forces and militarized police forces over there to Israel to train anyway. This is the transatlantic slave trade. These are the slaves. You have nothing to do with them. You understand? All of these people are our enemies. They have nothing to do with the true country and us as true Americans. Nothing. They're all a part of the get down. They're all down with the organ harvesting, the baby harvesting, all of it. Just the other day, they locked up all of these so-called black people, all a part of so-called secret societies happen to be, for stealing all of this money from the programs that they were given to help black people. All in a RICO. Remember, Biden been dead since 2014. This picture was taken his second term, his term in office. So this ain't even Biden. This is a decoy. Do you think these niggas gonna tell us that? Nope. Nope. Nope, because they down with him. They there to protect him and vice versa. My boy Kevin, big up to him. He just sent me this a couple of days ago, doing the knowledge. Like I was telling you, all of these corporations is incorporated in different places, right? Look, trademark for the United States and all of that is trademark in Canada. You see this? See this? United States of America. Estados Unidos de América, right? Registered where? Since when? Since 1977. It's in Canada. You understand what they doing? This is why a lot of times we'll be doing stuff and going at these people and sending them documents and shit that don't be working because they not even registered in the country that they in. They trademarks is registered in Canada. How is the United States trademark for the Department of the Navy registered in Canada? Look. You can look this up yourself. You know why? Because this is what they've been doing. While we're watching TV and we bitching about how they done made Superman a pansy and all of these other things that they've been destroying American pop culture with, this is what they're getting away with. And you know who doing it? Yeah. Remember, the Illuminati got shut down. The French Moors found out about that and shut that whole thing down, but it didn't stop it didn't stop Weishaupt and Jacob Frank and them to bring all of that over here. All of this is fake, Moor. All of it's fake. None of it's real. The only thing is real is your perception. So you got to make sure that you understand what it is that you're perceiving. And save your mental energy for shit that actually exists, not the theater. They all been worshiping Saturn. Remember I told you in Hellraiser that it started and ended with that Moor walking in front of the cube, showing you who's really in charge from the beginning and the end. Look. This from the movie. What's that? Who that? Who that? This is how these niggas came up. That's why they want us in a matriarchy. Because they know if a woman is running the society, the woman has been running the so-called black society for the past 8 years. and it's got us nowhere. We have gotten nowhere as a collective people. But when we was a patriarchal society, our men was out here fighting and taking over the world. Remember? They want you to be a matriarchy because they know that they can control the woman through emotion, and then she will create emotional children that do not respect authority. Tell me I'm lying. Tell me what I'm saying is not true. Tell me what I'm saying is anti-woman. It ain't got nothing to do with that. I'm telling you the facts of what this program is and why the men had to be castrated, why the men had to be kicked out. And while we was away fighting the war, sending all of our monies and stuff back to our women, they went to our women and said, we'll give you more money if you kick that nigga out the house. And then they got a whole bunch of women like Nikki Giovanni and Alice Walker and all of these dudes posing as females to come in and write all of these horror stories about shit that didn't even happen in our community. And that women took as the truth. And then through that, they were able to influx what? First, second, third, and fourth wave feminism to the point now where our women abort us before we even born as a means of birth control. Meanwhile, we'll have babies with everybody else. And then we'll say, where's the good men at? You understand? That is the worst thing to ever happen to females' feminism. The worst. But what is it? It don't exist. It's another construct created by satanic Fabianists, Frankists, Sabbatean occultists, devil worshippers. All these niggas is alive. None of these niggas is dead. Why would they kill Epstein? Why? He was their god. He was the head of the whole thing. Why would they kill him? That don't make sense. Why would they put Jelaine in jail when they could just get a decoy? And then make y'all think that she in jail. But they won't even get a male decoy. They'll get a dude. Because they know people is that slow and stupid that they don't even gotta get a female to be the decoy. They'll get a dude. Look. That's a guy. This a man. Look at the jaw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See that? Look at this. Egg shape, right? Right around. You see that? Get the book Gray's Anatomy and start familiarizing yourself with human anatomy again so you can find and see a man when you see it and see a female when you see it. And stop looking at these females that's males and males that's females. That's part of the game. It's part of the Fabian ritual to make you lust after the opposite of what you want, to make you spiritually gay. These niggas is sick, yo. But once you see it and once you accept what's happening, they can never lie to you again. They're all evil. Every celebrity that you see is inherently evil if they are mainstream. That's just the facts, guys. I don't care how much you like the songs. I don't care how much you go to the concerts, how much you like this or that. I don't care. If they are being embraced by the mainstream, they are inherently evil. You understand me? It's just what it is. Just from the Epstein file. Big up to Brother Sirhan. New Epstein file reveals that Leonardo DiCaprio ate over 70 pounds of child meat as a part of a cannibalism diet. Right? The files exposed DiCaprio swapping emails with Woody Allen where he brags about being a full-blown cannibal. It's in the files, y'all. It's in there. And they're still protecting these people. Yes. The book, The Delectable Negro. Get the book, Dirt. Get the book, Cannibal Country. Mm-hmm. These are the bloodlines. What's crazy again is all of these is basically Moors, melanated people. All of them. All of them. In different states. Nah, this is the world we live in. So if you have children, get the Grey's Anatomy book and start showing them what a man looks like, what a female looks like. That's the only way you're going to be able to tell the difference. So when they get older, they can look off top. If the clavicle goes straight across, that's a man. I don't care what type of dress, what type of hairstyle, any of that. Okay? It's a guy. If it's a dude, I don't care how big he is. If his jaw does not come out on the side like the mandible in the 5 points that I showed you, it's a girl. It's a lot of bearded, muscular, big ladies out here that's been fronting, that's been acting like it's a dude, and it's not. The transgender agenda is not an agenda, it's a religion. They raise their children like this. Black, white, red, it don't matter. You understand? At the end, they all are down with it. The only people that's not is me and you. You understand? You understand? They were all at the island. They was all going to curry favor with that nigga. They all wanted to get what he got. They all wanted to be blessed by Jeffrey. You understand? Because he was the Sabbatian nigga or whatever that was the one in charge for whatever reason. They all went to the island. Black, white, red, it don't matter. Because they all down with it. Because these niggas can't die. Exactly. Just look at the jaws. Look at the jaw. See his jaw goes. See how it goes around like an egg? See how this nigga's head jaw goes around like an egg? Look at her jaw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See? Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See? Look. It's round like an egg, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This might be the only dude. All these niggas is girls. This is probably a girl right here. These niggas is probably women. These bitches is probably men. This is probably a dude. Look at this head. Where's the softness? You think every woman is 6'7" now, right? Every woman got a face that look like they could take 18 punches, right? Yo. So anybody have any questions? Yes. So stop thinking about it as like a club or a secret. It ain't a secret no more. They all down with it. It was an experiment that went bad. They took the Morris decoy thing and they took it to the next level. But now they all being forced to drink double the cup because it's all coming out that they are the ones that have been destroying everything, and now they're starting to pay for it. They wiped out all of the melanated people in Argentina on purpose. Read about that. There's books about how the whites that infiltrated Argentina came in and started to wipe out everybody. and they forced a fake war between Uruguay and Paraguay. And when all the original men was away fighting the war, they went in and from behind slaughtered and shot them all down, killed them, then ran in, killed all of the women that was left, all the melanated women was left, raped the ones that they didn't kill, and then forced them to have these mulatto babies, and then rewrote the history as if they were always the original ones there. That's why the Luz is in there right now, burning Argentina to the ground. Argentina's on fire right now, and that's what they get. And that's what they get for doing that to us. This is what original Argentinians looked like. That's why Argentinians are some of the most racist people in the world. But they the nice racists. They won't really act like they are. But again, they come from a culture that wiped out all of the Moors that was there. Forced them all out the country. Had to go to Paraguay, Uruguay, and everybody else, the ones that survived. And they went to go and defend their country. Why do you think the Nazis went there? The white Nazis went there after the war. So just remember. Yeah, go read this article too. Big up to all the Jewish people that's against this shit, man. Because there's a lot more than we think. Not everybody's down with this shit, bro. But they definitely set up a decoy royalty situation to throw all of us off as to what was really going on and who was really in control. And it's been that way ever since. And the only way out is the way in. Because these niggas is not going to give up. They're going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it until it's all done. This is them after they took over the last temple. I forget what it says. This is in America. They took over the last temple that these Moors had. This was the last Moor that was there. Defez them and all of that. After they rituals and all y'all shrining niggas. These are your brothers. These are the niggas who y'all niggas is emulating and trying to be down with. It ain't gonna say there's something wrong with us. No, this is who y'all brothers is. This is who y'all be doing your little fake dances and all of the bullshit y'all be doing. This is who y'all cool with. This is who y'all going breast to breast with, keeping secrets for. These niggas right here. Traitors. All these niggas. But they don't show us shit like that. So anybody have any other questions? We got to take it back to zero, Moors. We got to take it back to when we was basically in power. And it starts in the mind first. That's where it starts. And then once we understand that, we understand the reality. See, we come from this era. This is the era we come from. We actually had to go out and get knowledge. You understand? This is the era that we come from. This is the era that we invented. All of this conscious TikTok shit y'all niggas seeing now, all of that shit started here with us. So now they got all of these white Elvis niggas trying to come out and kick more science and all this other type of shit, watching my videos, watching other people's videos, and now trying to regurgitate more science like they know something about it when they the same hybrids that they talk about, that we the sellout. But we the sellouts, right? No, we remember. This is where we got to go back to. This is where we got to be in the mind. You understand? Because that's where we're king. That's where we're queens. That's where our empire truly lies. That's where they can never get. That's where they can never take. That's why they got to emulate and try to create other bullshit. But this is where it started, which means this is where it's going to go back to. Anybody have any other questions? Well, if you haven't already, I greatly appreciate it if you guys check out www.aseertheducateers.com, as well as On that, you'll see the link to all of my other stuff, all my links. If you haven't already, if you can subscribe to A Dot, I greatly appreciate it. Again, I'm gonna start doing some lives on there sooner than later. So I'm gonna put the joints up there. Do you find a lot of your information on sites other than Google? Have you been to use dark web? Yeah, I try not to go in there too much though, because they have a lot of tracer programs. And once you go in there, they start doing. So I gotta get the Tor browser and all of that, and I'll be doing so much other stuff. I'll be like, I don't even have time, you know. But yeah, if you could definitely check that out, I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't already, definitely check out CordobaOrganics.com for all of your health conscious needs, the skincare and all of that. Definitely check that out. Also, if you haven't already, you can check out, I got my book up there, The Dark Score 418, which I talk about all of this stuff in an entertainment form to help digest a lot of it better and to actually show that there may be ways out of it so long as we work together. You know what I'm saying? And everybody that's purchased the new joint, I really appreciate it. The book on how we established the Sultanate, and the work that we did for those years in Mecklenburg County. Everybody that would come out to the joint. Oh, damn. I hate when I do that. Well, y'all seen what it is. If you go into the joint, you can definitely check it out. It'll be up there. Yeah, they say Hillary's supposed to testify, but remember, I read that Hillary got shot by firing squad a couple of years ago, so we don't know who that is. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. Thank you guys for the support. I really appreciate you. If you have any other questions, you can definitely hit me up at houseofl@hotmail.com. And yeah, they all got Kuru. That's why they all look like that. People look up the Kuru virus. You don't know what that is. If you have any other questions, though, you can hit me up at houseofl@hotmail.com. And we'll definitely, inshallah, build next time. All right? Yeah, that Ozempic is the key, is the what you call it. That's the decoy. They all suffer from the Kuru. Thank you, Noble. Yeah, it should be on its way to you. I sent out a batch on Friday. So yeah, Nobles, long live the empire. Support one another. You know what I'm saying? Proconium Malut Laudibus. And again, thank you guys for coming through, man. I really appreciate the support, man, because again, we all we got, and it helps me, get a lot of this out to you, so that way you can do the research and you can start to spread it. You can break down these whole constructs before they even get started in the mind of the youth. Because again, we got to protect the children, man. Because these niggas want to see it all burn so they can bring their fake God into reality. But there's no such thing as a mystery God. Man knows not from being told. So honest to you guys, honest to the prophet, honest to all of the ancestors and everybody that's come before. And inshallah, next week we're going to go through the whole list of all of the different versions of the religion and how we got here. All right? All right, y'all. Peace.